I mentioned last week, we'll have a guest speaker today. So this is Mr. Jerry Tuttle, and I don't want to take up too much time introducing Jerry because I know that he will have a lot of great things to tell you, but I'll say a little bit that I have known Jerry quite a long time through first meeting at a math and technology workshop in Muskegon quite a long time ago, around 10 years ago at least. And so Jerry is retired from being an actuary and maybe retired from a lot of other things as well, but has found new things to do in retirement related to educating lots and lots of people about statistical topics. And so we talked about some expected values last week. And so Jerry is going to expand upon that and give you some more insight, some applications, some fun facts. And so if you have any questions, I'm sure that if you just want to ask, that will be fine. If you want to put them in the chat, I'll try to look for them also. But for now, I'll turn it over to you, Jerry. So if you want to welcome our guest speaker in the chat or say hi or have any questions, feel free to do so. All right. So yeah, I'll mute myself and let you do your thing, Jerry.
Okay, thanks, John. Just checking, you can hear me? Can I get a thumbs up from you,
Yep.
John? Yes, you can hear me?
Yes, we can.
Okay, great. Sorry for some technical issues. So John and I have known each other for 10 years. We met at what my girlfriend fondly calls math camp. We spent a week at a math workshop. So my girlfriend sent me away to camp, and John and I met 10 years ago, and we've been friends since. Let me see if I can share my screen. All right. I assume you can see the screen. John, give me a thumbs up if you can see the screen.
Yes, we can see it.
Okay, good. So this is me with my girlfriend and our new puppy, Yofi. We've only had Yofi for a couple of months now, but he's certainly changed our lives. And he may or may not make a guest appearance during this talk. So I understand that some math teachers like tacos. Perhaps this class knows that, but not all of them do. Not all math teachers like tacos. I prefer pastrami. And this is a picture of me celebrating my my brand new degree, which I finished earlier this year. I now have a master's in data analytics at age 71. So if there's anyone in this class who feels they're an older student and they're too old to learn, I bet you're not as old as me. And I can't advance my slide. Wait. I think this should work. Any idea why I can't advance the slide?
So I I swear I saw it come up in the bottom right, like if you move your mouse over to the bottom right, I swear I saw the controls pop up, but I may have been wrong. Oh, bottom left.
All right,
Well, yeah, I saw them over there.
all right, there we go. So here's quickly my bio. I grew up in New York City. Perhaps you can recognize my accent. I have a BA in math from Queens College, City University of New York, master's in applied math, University of Virginia. Then I spent 42 years as an insurance company actuary, which is a mathematician in the insurance business. I have a fellow of the Casualty Actuarial Society designation, which is 10 exams, other insurance credentials. I've been an online math teacher for 13 years. I'm currently at RIMCAD, Rocky Mountain College of Art and Design, where I teach math to arts students. And I'm currently at Southern New Hampshire University, where I recently earned a degree in data analytics. So John asked me to talk about expected value in business, and I have some thoughts on this to share, and perhaps I can even introduce some controversy and discussion towards the end. I'm not sure what you've already had on expected value, but so maybe this is review. If X is a random variable having values X1 to Xn, and you could think of these as outcomes, such as dollar outcomes, and corresponding probabilities P1 through Pn, then the expected value of X is the weighted average of these X's weighted by the P's. So P1 times X1 plus P2 times X2 and so on, or in summation notation. If your X is a continuous variable, there's a calculus equivalent to this. We won't worry about this now. And as an example, I guess you're all from Michigan. I understand there's a Michigan Mega Million jackpot that pays a minimum of $40 million. And in your jackpot, you select 5 numbers from 1 to 70, plus 1 number from 1 to 25. The probability of winning, I don't know if you've had combinations yet. Have you had combinations this course?
No, but we did talk about the idea of the probability, but not how to count the number of possibilities yet.
Okay, well, you may want to talk about this at a subsequent class. But I like to check the probabilities and odds of these lotteries on the official website. So I did confirm this one. For the big winner, you need to pick 5 numbers out of 70 correctly, and then 1 number out of 25 correctly. So that's what's in the denominator here. These are called combinations, and maybe John will talk about that. There's only 1 winner. So the probability of winning the jackpot is 1 over this number, which is 1 over 302 million. The probability of not winning is then 1 minus that. And we'll ignore the fact that there are other smaller jackpots. We'll just assume we're only interested in this big one. I understand a ticket in Michigan is $2. And so what is the expected value of this using the same formula? It's P1, which is what this 1 over 302 million. The outcome is a plus 40 million if you win, plus the other outcome, which is you losing $2 times its probability, which is 1 minus this. And the expected value is a negative 1.87. And expected value represents the long run expectation. So if you bought lots and lots of $2 tickets over your lifetime and the probability doesn't change, in your lifetime, you'd be expected to lose $1.87 per ticket. Is anyone surprised about this? Did anyone think that the long run expectation would be positive? or even zero? Why wouldn't it be zero? Why wouldn't the lottery officials do this in such a way that it's zero? I'll take a response from the audience, but I'm not reading the chats. John, are there any replies?
Not yet. So yeah, so if you want to even reply in the chat, like what would be maybe surprising or not surprising about why you would be expected to lose $1.87 per each $2 ticket, then I'll read it out loud if you don't want to unmute yourself.
I would say I'm not surprised because like the odds of winning the lottery are really slim. So like it would be like less than zero, like zero or less than zero of a chance kind of that you win. Like the odds are very slim.
And why wouldn't the lottery officials want to make this a zero long run expectation? I mean, they certainly could have changed the probability or the payouts to make it a zero. Why wouldn't they do that?
I don't know, they want it to be more complicated, I guess. Like like they want to like the more that people buy, like the more of chance they have, like they want them to think like that, but it's not really like that, I guess.
I think the answer is the lottery wants to make money on this. They're doing this probably to fund education. They want to make money. If this were your religious organization doing some sort of a game of chance, they'd want to make money. They don't want this to be a zero expectation. They expect to make money, which means you should expect to lose money. Let's move on. Let's get something a little closer to business. Let's take auto insurance. I know because I've been in the insurance business, but you don't. What an average claim is. Here I'm going to do bodily injury and property damage. This is liability. This is if you injure another person or another vehicle and you're at fault and they sue you. This is not collision on your car. I know the average auto liability claim is something like $22,000. And the probability of having a claim is pretty small, something like 1%. And suppose your liability insurance premium is $600. I can do these calculations because I know these amounts. You as the consumer don't have that information. But nevertheless, if I do this calculation, so there's a 1% probability that there'll be a claim for an average of $22,000. Average is a key word here. We'll return to that. There's a 99% probability that you won't have a claim and you'll be out your $600 premium. And so once again, your expected value of buying insurance is a negative $374. So this is also not a zero expectation. It's not a fair game. Are you surprised it's not a fair game? And let me open up this one to the class. If you had the option not to buy liability insurance, I assume it's required in your state. Would you? Particularly knowing that your long run expectation is negative $374 a year. If you had the option not to buy liability insurance, would you? Why or why not? And I'll pause and I'll accept an answer.
So there is one response, a couple in the chat, but if anyone wants to mute yourself, then and provide what you think about this expected value being negative $374 for a $600 premium, then feel free to do that. Otherwise, I'll read the couple of comments in the chat. Yeah, so Claire Marie says, no, I'm not surprised, again, because the insurance companies like to make money off of people. And then Joe says, definitely not. I used to work in insurance. I know how some of it works in terms of making a profit. So so I think the gist of what's in the chat, Jerry, is that there's recognition that the insurance companies wouldn't make any money otherwise.
Okay, that's certainly fair enough. Insurance is a business and is there to make a profit for its stockholders. And its stockholders are you and me. When I have some extra money that I don't need to spend on my normal expenses, I invest it in the stock market. It's in my retirement accounts and so on, and some of it's in insurance. So I'm the one who wants to benefit from the profit, if there is. But beyond that, what do you think might happen to insurance companies if they sort of did this at a zero expectation? Sooner or later, there'd be some pretty large claims, and there wouldn't be enough money for it. And one of the awful things in society is if you've paid your $600 diligently year after year, and then you have a claim, and then that insurance company's not around to pay it. I mean, how pissed and unfair would that be? But let's move on. I talked about that $22,000 being an average, and I'm sure we all know that that doesn't mean each and every claim is going to be $22,000. There's a distribution around that $22,000. So I did this is actually a simulation. I started with a $22,000 mean, and I simulated a large number of claims under some assumptions which we won't get into. The mean is approximately $22,000. It's greater than the median. Also, I asked, what is the 99.9th percentile? And that's like $120,000. So under certain assumptions, even though the mean claim is $22,000, there could certainly be a pretty large claim. This distribution is not symmetrical. It's not bell-shaped. It's called positively skewed. There are more observations to the left of the mean than there are to the right. And that's because in insurance, as in a lot of things, most events are small. You know, a so-called fender bender in the parking lot may cost a few $100s or $1,000, far less than that $22,000. Most insurance claims are small. This is a positively skewed distribution, but the tail is considerable. And when I asked if you had the option not to buy insurance, this is kind of what I had in mind. It's not so much the $22,000 claim you ought to be worried about, but the $120,000 claim or the $1 million claim. I mean, if you collide with a car full of actuaries, as much money as they make, they're going to sue you for a lot more than $120,000. And really, that's, I think, why you buy insurance, even if it wasn't required. It's because the distribution is not symmetrical, and there's a tiny probability of a giant claim. And I think that affects the buying decision. Let's move on to a different kind of concept, and that's life expectancy. I think we all know something about life expectancy. Life expectancy is the number of years we expect a person to live on average. So this too is an expected value, although most people don't think about that. And the concept applies to all species, not just humans. In fact, I showed you the picture of our new dog in the first slide. I guess I was curious as to what his life expectancy is, and there's a life expectancy table by species, and his life expectancy is 13 years. But life expectancy also applies to machines like refrigerators or cars, or most kinds of machines are not going to last forever. Or things like light bulbs. Each of these has a life expectancy, and it's the same concept. For people, life expectancy is affected by many variables, including gender, medical care, diet, lifestyle, climate, occupation, many more things. Obviously, I'm not a doctor or a biologist who would know a lot more about these things. But I think these things are all sort of plausible, that these are the sorts of things that affect people's life expectancy. And diseases like COVID are so significant that they have reduced overall life expectancy. So how is life expectancy calculated? Well, we go back to our definition of expected value. It's going to be the weighted average of living 1 year, 2 years, 3 years, and so on, weighted by their respective probabilities. So let's deal with a 70-year-old. I'm 71. Let's go back to the good old days when I was 70. So the life expectancy of a 70-year-old is P1 is the probability a 70-year-old will survive 1 year, and that's multiplied by 1. Then plus P2, the probability a 70-year-old will survive 2 years, and that's multiplied by 2, and so on. And that calculation is done for as many years as there are probabilities. And that's what life expectancy is. So it's really no different than the expected value calculations we've done before. Actuaries, such as myself, calculate these probabilities, these P's, and their complements, which are Q's. So P's are the probabilities of living, Q's are the probabilities of dying. And with these P's and Q's, we publish mortality tables. But note, for example, for people born in 2021, there's no experience on what's going to happen when they become 70. And similarly, for someone like me, there's no experience for my cohort, my fellow 70-year-olds, for how many of them are going to live to be 80 and 85 and 90 and so on. So these life expectancies and mortality tables are kind of always a moving target. You're always using old data to extrapolate into the future. And only many years in the future will you know if your calculations are correct. And further, today's 70-year-old's future life expectancy has changed since birth. So I think when I was born, I think my life expectancy was 68 years. Obviously, things have changed in the past 70 years, medical advances and so on. And obviously, I've outlived that 68. So my life expectancy is, it would be foolish to say that my life expectancy is 2 years ago. So here are some excerpts from one life expectancy table, and there are many life expectancy tables with various assumptions. This one comes from Social Security. It differs by age, differs by gender. So presumably today's newborn is expected to live 76 years if a male, 81 if a female. For myself, my life expectancy at age 70 is now an additional 14.6 years as a male. So Social Security expects that I will live to be 84 and a half. It's another 2 years for females. Females are consistently better than males as far as how long they will live. So let's keep this 14.6 in mind, because ignoring that I'm 71, pretending that I'm 70, we're going to play with that number for a couple more slides. So the table said my expectation as a 70-year-old male is 14.6 years. And remember, that's an average. Just like when I did the histogram of the auto claims, there's a whole distribution around that point. That's the mean value. It certainly doesn't mean everyone lives 14.6 years and then immediately dies. Some people will live fewer years and some people will live more years. So now, as my girlfriend likes to humorously say, let's talk about me. So should I plan on having retirement savings equal to 14.6 years? And here are 3 questions I should answer in thinking about that question. Is the distribution of mortality age symmetrical, or is it positively skewed? It's probably not symmetrical. I think more people will die earlier than the mean, then will die later than the mean. What about the median? What percentile is the median? Have you talked about that in class? John, give me a nod.
Yes. So if you have any thoughts on any of the questions here, feel free to unmute yourself or type something in the chat, and I'll read out some of your answers about the median, about the your thoughts on whether a 70-year-old male should plan on having retirement savings equal to 14.6 years, the symmetry of the distribution of the mortality ages, or any of the questions proposed here. So yes, feel free to put your thoughts in the chat or unmute yourself. Okay, so Haley, so I'm wondering, Haley, said, I think that a 70-year-old should have his savings be longer than 14.6 years. So why would you say that, Haley? I'm just wondering.
I don't think there should be like an exact number of years they should save for, because like you can never tell exactly how long someone's going to live. Like something catastrophic could happen and they could like pass away suddenly, or they could live longer than those 14 years, and then maybe you'd be like scrambling for, savings or something like that. Like, life, you can calculate life expectancy, but you can't like calculate how long like someone's going to live, that to that each individual person.
Yeah, nobody knows, except maybe God, how long I'm going to live. I could be in an auto accident this afternoon, or I could live to 105.
So Austin said that he would tell the 70-year-old male to start saving in his 20s and to start saving as young as possible.
Good advice. The power of compound interest. You want to work for as many years as possible.
So Danielle said, I think that the distribution is not symmetrical because everyone is unique and has different things that factor into their lives that could cause that. And Haley said, just better to be safe than sorry.
Yep. And putting some math to that last statement is maybe I should think about some higher percentile than say the 50th percentile or whatever the mean is. Maybe I should think about saving a number of years equal to the 90th or the 95th percentile. And insurance companies think about that as far as how many dollars they need to put aside to pay for claims and catastrophes and so on. So generally, we often think about life expectancy, but life expectancy is just one number on that distribution, and it's if you're going to quote one number, the expected value is probably the number you want to quote, but it's not necessarily the only number you want to use. So how is life expectancy used? It's certainly used in insurance companies setting aside life insurance premiums. It's also used as to how much to set aside for pension funds and annuities. John, do you get a pension fund in your employment?
Oddly enough, I do, but the education is one of those strange things where I know that part of mine is now in stocks and investments and not a traditional pension.
Okay, so your retirement fund has an element of risk to it because it's invested.
Yes.
But you probably want that, particularly at someone your age. You want you want money to accumulate at hopefully a stock market rate of return over 20 or 30 years rather than a fixed rate, because over the long term the stock market outperforms fixed rates. But we're not here to talk about finance. But nevertheless, just as the insurance company worries about life expectancy with premiums, your pension fund worries about life expectancy, about having enough money in the pension fund to pay you for your lifetime. Workers' compensation, which is on-the-job injuries. There are claims that are paid over a person's lifetime if a person is permanently injured, or if a person dies and has a surviving spouse. Interestingly, in most states, the surviving spouse is paid until life or remarriage. And so the actual joke is that remarriage is the equivalent of death because their workers' compensation claim ends. Getting back to me again, individuals just need to decide how to save for retirement. We talked about that. A more interesting decision is Social Security. When you're eligible for Social Security, you have options as to when to collect. You can collect as soon as you're eligible, or you can wait a few years. If you wait a few years, you'll get a higher benefit. And now we're back to one of these life expectancy calculations. Is it better to collect early and get those extra years because you might die early? Or is it better to wait a few more years and get that higher benefit forever? And many people disagree on that, but let's move on. So now let's talk about the R word, race. Probably don't talk about race too much in a math class. Hopefully I'll do this in a way that does not get John in trouble. If you recall, the published Social Security tables were by gender. Data exists, and other organizations publish tables by race. And in the US, I can tell you that US life expectancy is highest for Asian American individuals. Next highest is Hispanic individuals, then whites, and lowest for blacks. These are mathematical actuarial calculations. Well, let me move on. Insurance companies would certainly never set prices by race. And nor would anything else be set by race. If you buy a life insurance policy, you don't pay a different price based on race. But if you believe the prior statement, life expectancy is different by race. So here is the really key question of this whole talk. Thinking back to what we've talked about with expected value. So we would never set prices by race. But is it wrong or unfair to use tables by race? And for example, once again, let's talk about me. Does it make sense that I'm making financial decisions based on a life expectancy table for all males? You can probably tell I'm a white male. Should I be looking at a life expectancy table only for my race? So I pose this question, and I'm going to stop talking for a moment. Is it wrong or unfair to use tables by race?
So, what we can do is that how about everyone take a minute, and then like we have in the past, after about a minute, I'll tell you when to hit enter in the chat, and then everyone enter your thoughts all at once, and then I'll pick a couple of them to read out loud. That way it will give everyone a chance to all be able to think about the questions here. And if you even are thinking here, well, like all of this information here made me think of another question to ask, then put your question in the chat after about a minute here. So we'll do that. So I'll let you know when to hit enter in the chat, and then I'll read a few of them out. All right, so if you have something you thought of, just go ahead and enter it in the chat now. And like I said, I will read a few of your questions or comments. And even if you still need another couple of seconds to type, that's fine also. So one comment said, well, it seems like a lot of these comments are saying that it's not necessarily unfair. Like, I guess I wouldn't say it's wrong, since these appear to be the facts and you should make decision based on facts to better your decision. So that's from Danielle. Jessica says, I don't think it is perhaps unfair if it provides the consumer with more accurate data. Evelina says, I think it is unfair because a big contributor is wealth. And if you have access to healthcare and medical, I think you can, any race can live longer than the expectancy. And then Joe says, as only as long as it is solely used for data purposes and not to favor one group or the over the other. And Lily said something similar. It could be wrong if the tables are by race are used and interpreted. Yeah, based on how they're used and interpreted, it could be wrong. So I think that's the other thing that came up in these comments, is that even the comments leaning toward that it is fair still are going along the side of being cautious in how the tables and data are being used and interpreted.
John, how much more time do we have?
Well, maybe 10, 15 minutes. And there were some other questions at the end, Jerry, that that the audience had that I have not read yet.
All right, you want to read a few more, or do you want me to?
Yeah, you can move on. I think, yeah, that's.
This is my final slide, but let's talk about gender. Automobile rates differ by gender, as do health insurance rates. On average, women are better drivers than men and pay less for it. On average, women are more expensive in the health insurance arena and pay more for that. Are people bothered by that? The fact that, let's take the auto insurance, that your auto price differs by gender? Are the women bothered?
Whoops, I'm not sure did you say you did move to a new slide, Jerry? I don't know if I can see it.
I'm on the same slide.
Okay, I just wanted to make sure.
So women pay less for auto insurance on average because women have better claims experience than men. Is that fair that we charge them less than we charge men? Is there a woman in the audience who thinks that's unfair? Is there a man in the audience who thinks that's unfair?
So Jenna and Evelina said that they don't think it's fair. And then Abby said no, because everyone is responsible for their own driving capability. So yeah, it seems like that is the general consensus, is that it is maybe it is unfair, but at the same time, people should be responsible for their own ability. And so even though the data says it's fair, not all males are reckless. And then so if we did something different, it would give people the chance to be smart drivers.
So the women would be okay if we raise their rates so that to subsidize the poorer experience of the men.
So Evelina said a big no to that, but I will say that or Abby said, or lower the rate for men.
Well, in most states, the auto insurance prices are different by gender. A few states have abolished that. Now, auto insurance, not unlike university admissions, I realize you're a two-year school and it might be different. Auto insurance and university admissions are two industries that don't have to accept every applicant. These are two industries that are allowed to say, I'd like to sell my product to you, but I do not want to sell my product to you. The law lets insurance do this. The law lets universities do this. It's very different than most other industries you could think of. A supermarket doesn't do anything like that. No, the supermarket never says, I don't want to sell to you. So both the insurance business and universities are allowed to discriminate, putting this in air quotes. They're allowed to make decisions. They don't have to accept every applicant. Getting back to the auto insurance, the auto insurance industry likes to think it sets a reasonably fair premium for each individual. And therefore, it's sort of indifferent to various individuals. But let's suppose the average, I had said a $600 premium before. Let's suppose it's an average of $500 for women and $700 for men. And let's suppose we changed the rules and made it $600 for everyone. But remember, we don't have to sell to everyone. If we're selling every premium at $600, wouldn't we only want to write women and not men? We think we only need to charge $500 to women, and now we can get away charging $600. Do you follow what I'm saying? And do you see what would happen to the market if we compress those two rates, charged an average rate, and found that we can make much more money with one group than the other? We'd only sell that one group.
So, Jerry, Jenna said, my car insurance company tells me to send my grades in, and if they are good, I get a discount. But on the other hand, I get into a car accident, which was not my fault, and now it's sky high, and that's definitely not fair.
Well, let's talk about the accident. You probably have not talked about conditional probability in this class, have you?
Not yet.
Okay. There are certain probabilities for the whole group of drivers. But then the group of drivers who have had an accident, we now know something more about them than we knew before. And here's what actuaries have learned. The group of drivers who have had an accident are more likely on average to have another in the next 3 years than the group of people who have not had an accident. And that's called conditional probability. The probabilities have changed. And that's why they jack up your rate. It's not to recoup the claim amount they've paid out, which would sort of seem plausible. It's because we think your probability has changed. And of course, everything is based on averages. Nobody is really diagnosing you as an individual. We don't have the ability to do that yet. Maybe someday with data analysis, we will collect 200 different variables on each person, and maybe we can really set a price for you different than every other person in the class. But at the moment, everything's based on averages, and that's the answer to that.
So, Jerry, yesterday I was arguing with some people I know over breakfast, and the conversation was about why I don't change lanes very often when I drive, and why I stay in one lane as long as I can, whether or not I see that the other lanes are maybe going a little bit faster. And I was always taught by my dad growing up that you should try to stay in the same lane if you can for the entire time you're driving. Like, he would be able to go from where we live to the downtown library in Flint, Michigan, and only make one lane change the entire time. But he said that people who changed lanes fewer times got in fewer accidents. So this made me think of that in terms of, if I'm doing something like that, and that is true, that I'm lowering my expected average of, or probability of, being in an accident. So what do you think about that, Jerry? Is that something that could be factored in?
I would agree with that. I think your probability of having an accident increases with each lane change. And I think the world of data analysis is changing insurance like everything else. It started some years ago with a number of companies putting a device in your car and measuring, excuse me, how often and quickly you brake and accelerate, and they're learning more about your individual driving habits. I think as the industry collects more data and starts using it in rating, I think the behavior you're talking about will ultimately become like a rating variable. And I think ultimately there'll be like a 200 variable regression equation that gets a unique premium for you, different than everyone else. I think that's coming down the road. We're certainly not there yet.
And I think, Jerry, you bring up an interesting point that comment made me think of, is that if we get to the point of, say, 200 variables or more tracking devices that are more accurate, that maybe we won't have to track by more controversial variables like race and by gender, and that there will be enough other variables we can track that might be more accurate, like a reflection of a person's individual driving abilities.
Yeah, I think that's coming down the road. I think gender is really kind of an arbitrary variable. It has worked reasonably well in the past, but as the world of data analysis improves, we can do better, and we will.
So, Jerry, before we run out of time, I guess there was one question from Danielle that I wanted to go back to, and it was about if you have any advice or an opinion on if it's my goal is to one day be a sports data analyst for major league sports like the NHL or MLB. Would it be better to pursue a degree in data science analytics or in statistics, or would a degree in information systems management even be fine? So do you have any opinion on that, Jerry?
Well, I'm a lifelong Yankee fan. And I now have a degree in data analysis. If I could be a data analyst for a sports team, I would just be in my glory. Data analysis is sort of the Venn diagram intersection between math statistics, computer science, and domain knowledge. So you need both the math statistics and the computer end of it. And it really depends on which end really interests you more. Constructing databases, and where does the data come from? Some people love that stuff, and that's pretty important. How do they gather all the data that they gather during a sports event? That takes one sort of information expertise. Very different than the math expertise. But if you're a numbers person, study math, statistics, data analysis, but study some computer work too. If you're more interested in the computer end, then obviously major in computer science, but also study some math. And I think data analysts are really one of the jokes is they know more math than most computer people know, and more computer science than most math people know. I think it's a nice intersection, and I think it's a good degree. It's a very popular degree nowadays. Lots of people are hiring. It's an excellent career to be in. So certainly every major sports team has some sort of a data analyst on their staff, going back to the days of Moneyball, if not earlier.
So, Danielle, I will say that I absolutely agree with Jerry on that. And I also know that one of my former students was working for the Detroit Tigers at one point, and then he moved on to some more corporate job other than working in the analysis office there. But I, if you don't mind, Jerry, I'm going to share my screen for a moment because,
We're finished with my slide, right?
oh, okay. Then
Can you
let's
take-
see. Oh, there we go. I think I can do it. So this is actually for everyone. So this was actually a great tie-in, Danielle. So I got this email a couple of days ago, and I'm a part of the American Statistical Association, and the Detroit chapter is having a career talk next Wednesday. And so it is just going to be an hour-long Zoom session where you can talk with the board of the Detroit chapter about any questions that you might have about a career in statistics, or what types of careers might involve statistics. And so it did say, I don't think it actually said here, but like it did say that all students are welcome to come and ask questions. And so I'll put this, I'll do it right now. I'll put it in the Google Drive folder where the notes are for the class. And if you want to join that and then ask questions, or just find out more information, or even like even if you're not in a field of study where you think that you are going to need to use statistics, if you want to know more, then at least you can go and check that out. And I will, since I know that I said that you could do one of the career services workshops through the college for extra credit this semester, if you want to go to this career talk instead for extra credit for your event for the semester, you can do that one also. But it is in the folder here, and I will say that it could be useful. And if you want more information about joining the chapter or the ASA association, then there are like discounts for students and special email threads for just Danielle, this might be good for you, that there's a special like subgroup just for sports analytics, and the number of odd things I have seen in that discussion group about different problems that people are solving in sports analytics is interesting. So there's that for you as well. So let's see.
Thank you.
Yes, you're very welcome. Does anyone have questions for Jerry, or any other comments before we say goodbye to him? But not forever. Hopefully, maybe, if you have any specific questions, I'm sure if you send them to me, I can pass them along to Jerry for you, as long as that's okay with you, Jerry.
Sure. You gonna be in Phoenix?
As far as I know, I will be, but I might not be for the entirety of the conference next week, but I'm planning to be there a day at least, and in Phoenix a little bit longer, just to enjoy the weather.
My Ignite talk is data science aboard the ship Titanic.
Oh, and by the way, this is for all of you in the class. This Ignite talk is usually broadcast on social media somewhere, and it's a whole bunch of 5-minute short talks about various math and statistics related topics. And so if you want to like a good sense of what math teachers, statisticians do, data scientists do, that would be a good thing. And I can send the link to you if you ask.
And nobody is more entertaining at Ignite than you, John.
Well, I will say that I did not submit something yet, but I am planning to. So I know that they will always save a spot on the program for me if I ask.
Good reason.
So, yes, well, thank you again, Jerry. And if, yeah, so if you want to thank Jerry again, feel free to in the chat or in the reaction.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
My pleasure.
Yes.
Thank you.
And have a nice rest of your day, Jerry.